Welcome to the Conquer Your Battlefield podcast, where we come together to discuss some of the more significant struggles and metaphorical battlefields that we've faced along our journeys and share some insight on how we've conquered them. I'm JD McGibney, and today I'll be chatting with one of the most down-to-earth people I have ever met in my entire life. A man who has lived the rock star dream and just so happens to be an ideal single father, a masterful bassist, and a man that can befriend anyone in any room. Mr. Jason Klein, formerly of Butcher Babies, and now of Thumpdrag, and also my bandmate in Angels on the Battlefield. How you doing, Jason?
Good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for coming and hanging out and chatting for the podcast.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Today, we're going to be talking about separation anxiety. Normally, it is a common occurrence in children as they grow and develop, learning to be separated from their parents and loved ones as they become independent. Separation anxiety can, however, persist into adulthood for a myriad of reasons. In adults, separation anxiety tends to revolve around fear or concern about the well-being of a child or spouse. It could lead to bouts of extreme anxiety or even panic attacks. Over an extended period of time, individuals dealing with separation anxiety can become withdrawn from their normal social interactions and have difficulty concentrating and even experience bouts of depression. According to the Recovery Village, between 1% and 6% of adults deal with separation anxiety. Those who do tend to also have dealt with some sort of traumatic event in relation to their child or significant other. Another common statistic is that separation anxiety is not uncommon in women who have had difficulties during pregnancy and childbirth. Jason, We've been friends for a few years now. In that time, we've had a bunch of conversations in private about what it's been like for you being in a consistently touring band and being a single father at the same time. What was it like for you consistently being away from your daughter, and how do you feel being a single father and not a single mother has come into play around your experience with separation anxiety?
Well, when I was on the road, obviously you can't see your kid or your loved ones every day. You can call them on a phone, you can FaceTime them, Zoom call them, but it's not the same because you're talking over a device, a machine. It's a digital representation. For me, I think for everybody too, you have to be in the same room, feel their energy. So, how was it? Hell. um, it definitely at times brought out the worst in me, and there's probably a lot of unnecessary arguments because of it, and it's to have a child. Just speaking for myself, maybe for other people, having a child, that's a part of you, and being separated, I can't put it into words. You could say like an emptiness that's you can't fill with anything else. It feels like it's just every day it's like a heartbreak. You don't really know why, until you realize, it's just that's why it was, I just can't do this anymore. This is hard.
How old was your daughter when you first started going out on the road?
She had just turned 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
And right around that time, we went on our first road trip tour. It was like 2 months in the summer of 2012. So almost 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I remember before I left, I remember my dad telling me, he's like, you just make sure that you do not abandon her. Do not be out of your daughter's life. Whatever you got to do, you call her, figure it out with her mother, call her. Cause I was divorced. And I had the opportunity to go on the road and actually live my dream. And it's not that I didn't want to go. I knew it was going to be very tough to make that sacrifice of, okay, this is going to be hard. This one's going to hurt, but I got to do it. yeah, it was like August, I think. So August to September, 2 months. And it was in the middle of summer in a converted airport shuttle with no air conditioning. So
Oof.
that on top of everyone's first real tour, most of everyone's first real tour. Yeah.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine that
I
what that was
called her
like.
every day though.
That's fantastic. Um, that's really it's really uh good advice, like on from your dad's no like from your dad. It seems very like, well, duh, obviously make the effort, but it's just like for anyone that's ever been on the road, or anyone that's had to travel, anyone that's had to communicate with other people being in different time zones, like it gets difficult. But and like sometimes you just get lost in the moment. There's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to make, to be aware of. But like, so I can only imagine what it was like to make sure that like you were able to talk to your daughter at the proper time that was appropriate for her, because it comes down to the fact that she is so young, the fact that she's learning, the fact that she needs to like become a person, and like you're her role models. Like you have to accommodate what's best for her. So I can only imagine what that struggle was like, being away and having to deal with all those other you know bits and pieces.
Yeah, and that on top of it, at 4 years old, you're not really having a deep conversation with him. So, um, but as long as it was at least, and usually our phone calls were a good, estimate about 5 minutes, just talking. Hey, baby? How are you doing? What'd you do today? Are you being a good girl for your mom, or for grandma or grandpa? Or, and there was times where she would be crying on the phone, and there's you can't do anything about it. I think I was in maybe at a truck stop in Toledo, Ohio, and I had FaceTimed her, and she was with my mom that day.
Mhm.
And she was on the phone, and she was crying, and I remember not being able to do anything about it. And I'm just like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Even though I know the answer.
Mhm.
And she's just like, I miss you. I miss you. I'm like, I know, baby. I miss you too. And yeah, you didn't, no parent wants to see their children cry. I mean, even when they scrape their knee, yeah, they cry or whatever.
Yeah.
But no one wants to see that. It's just like, oh man, as a parent, you're like, that's what you do, is you console them. Hey, get up, you dust it off. You're okay.
Yeah, and like you're able to physically like be there, like in an instance where
Yeah.
like they do fall down, you're able to pick them up physically, hold them. I take care of the scrape, the boo boo that they have, put the band-aid on.
Right.
Like I can only
Well,
imagine like the heartache that moment must have like felt like. Just like the fact that you said this is a couple of years ago, and the fact that like it is ingrained into your memory. You remember where you were in the
yeah.
United States, in the middle of like nowhere, Ohio, and like
Toledo.
middle of nowhere, Ohio.
Yeah, it was how I felt. I can't put it into words. It was just extreme. Every emotion, anger, resentment, like, why did I do this? Why am I gone? But I don't have. I mean, I can't blame anybody for that, because this was like an opportunity. I could have said no to it. So I mean, it's not like, oh, this was this was avoidable. It's just something that I just always wanted to do, and I knew if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it, and I was right. So I mean, I can't blame anybody for that, and I don't think it was a bad thing. It was just hard.
Hmm.
Where I did fail was letting it get to me, and letting my emotions hijack my intelligence, and probably was, and I know I was probably very difficult to be with as a touring member of a band. There's unnecessary arguments that did not need to happen.
At the very beginning, you had mentioned that like the feeling of separation anxiety was impairing your judgment. You said it kind of like brought
Yeah.
out the worst in you. So
Yeah.
what do you feel what do you feel was the worst of you that came out because of it?
Angry, a lot of anger is what it was. Just towards other people. Disconnected. I was disconnected most of the time. Not all the time, but there was just times where people were just like, "Come on," like something like so if something happens on the road, and I was already stressed out. I always felt that I didn't have enough left over in my reserve tank to deal with this issue or that issue. So I would just be
Compartmentalize.
negative. Yeah. And there was times though that if it wasn't like that 100% of the time, it's just like when it got to that point, it got mean, rude, should I say? And I don't know if I ever said anything mean to fans. I might have. I don't remember. I usually have a pretty good memory. I might have said something sarcastically, and maybe they took it wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that's something. It's something you don't do. Like when you're in the entertainment industry, you're kind of you have to put your personal life aside, and you have to put on a different hat.
Yeah,
right?
there's two different personas basically. There's
Yeah.
they're not too completely different from one another, but it's just like this is what you portray to the public and like the press, and this is what is like for the world to see. And then there's like that little bit of you that's like, okay, this is for like my close friends and my family members and my loved ones, and this is like for me, just so you can have that separation.
I didn't. I took it all with me, and I was at times I was too open, and I remember I was having conversations with people I didn't know, and then when I came back to this is later on in the career, like I came back to the town and people would ask me, "How's Eden?" And I'm like, "Who the hell are you?"
Oh man!
Oh wait, yeah, I did. Oh, what did I tell you? Oh shit!
That's funny.
I'm like, I should have. If I would have maybe handled it better, I would have been able to not reach out to a stranger and use them as a counselor. Well, it's not the best to do. I'm not saying you don't do it, just maybe not.
There is there's a level of like concern, like when you're just talking to someone like you barely know. Like I get that. But like you also have to take into consideration, like you're a single parent who's doing this as well. So it's normally, quote unquote, normal is that you have, at least two people in a relationship that are like in a working partnership that help with the raising of the child or the children. It sounds like, there was some, there was tension in like the relationship between you and your ex did not last, hence the divorce and everything. So like there's that tension as well. Plus there's the raising of your daughter. Plus there's, touring is not easy by any means. And then being in entertainment, you have to have that, the game face, as it were. And then, you reserve, the personal time, the personal Jason for like your friends and loved ones. Like there's a lot of emotional gear shifting that you had to be doing at any given time for a decade, basically. So it's knowing you personally and being friends with you for the past like 6 years or whatever it's been, like you're like, I don't say that lightly. You're very down to earth. You're very friendly. You have a huge heart. You're the kind of guy who will give the shirt off your back to like a stranger if they needed it. So like the fact that you were able to navigate all of that and come out to still be the positive person you are, the supportive person that you are, and to like I've seen you with your daughter. You are an amazing parent. You're an amazing father, and she obviously loves you, even though you had that hurdle of being away a lot when she was growing up. What is it that finally made you say, okay, I need to stay home and be with my daughter and like leave? You took a step back from the music industry. What is it that made you take that step back?
Well, from the very beginning, I knew for a fact that I could not possibly do this forever. I knew that there would come a time where I would have to step back. I just didn't know when. And I'd let my members of the band know that kind of early on. And there was a couple of emotional, heartfelt, like, look, I don't know how long I can do this, much love, but I can still do it now, but I don't know at what point. So at some point I'm going to have to not. And there was a couple times where I said I could make a tour. I mean, I always made a tour, and obviously everything panned out. But I started feeling it right about 2017, right as we were recording our third record, Lilith. We were doing pre-production for it, and I just felt it's like, I don't know if I can do it. Not do the record, but I don't know if I can go out on this run, which hadn't even been scheduled yet. I remember talking with Heidi, one of the singers, and I had a good hour and a half long conversation, and she told me, like, look, you're an amazing father. We love you, but ultimately you have to make the choice. Like, if it's hurting you, then you might have to take a step back, but hang in there for it's going to get better. And I did. And I went on it was the end of 2017, went on, supported Hollywood Undead. And then 2018, we did a couple tours. We did a co-headlining tour with Nonpoint. And near the end of that year, it was just becoming, other tours were coming up, and I remember it was the last European run we were on. I was completely disconnected. I wasn't connected at all with the band, and I was
No, when you say disconnected, you mean like emotionally disconnected?
Yeah, like, not that I didn't care about them, but what if they were going to go do something? I'd just, no, stay back, stay on the bus, sleep. I slept a lot. Whenever they say that the whole cliche, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I know why people would probably do drugs. It's to fill that void. I would fill that void with alcohol or sleeping,
which is two very, very classic signs of depression.
Right.
Drinking excessively, the substance abuse, and
eating.
Eating.
And I was eating, ice cream is my kryptonite. A lot of ice cream, because it tastes good. Okay,
ice cream and booze.
Ice cream, booze.
Yeah. But yeah, it sounds like near the end there, you were getting a lot of the telltale signs of separation anxiety, which is you were having you were a drastic change in your social norms. So you weren't hanging out with everybody, you were just avoiding everyone. You were like reclusing. You were sleeping a lot. You were having it definitely sounds like you're having like very long and serious bouts of depression.
Yeah. And I was just, like I said, I was disconnected, hiding from everybody, and I probably had resentment, for unnecessary resentment for no reason. I don't even know why I would resent, because when you're in a band, when you're touring, I mean, they become your extended family, and it's a ride or die situation, right?
Yeah, so you're trapped in a tin can with a group of people for a minimum of 30 days. You become pretty friendly and pretty close.
You put up with everybody's idiosyncrasies. Waking up and someone snores too loud, or someone leaves their shoes out. Or,
thank God for earplugs,
no one's
man.
perfect. Yeah, earbuds.
Oh God.
But I just knew I remember just like, what? It was the end of 2018. After the tour, I didn't really talk much with the band, and a little angry. But I just decided, I can't do this anymore. I have to come home. Something told me, stop, just stop. You've done it. You've gone as far as you can, and you're sawing yourself in half. But if you keep going more, so I remember texting. I was in an airport, texting my old boss, like, "Hey, you guys need in looking for another mechanic, because that's what I was, a diesel engine mechanic." And he's like, "Come in on Monday." Like desperately, like, "Please come in. We need you back." So that's what happened. And then there was an emotional phone call to my band the beginning of 2019, and I told them, it was a heartfelt, like, I apologize, like, look, I'm sorry for being disconnected, for being mean and everything, but I can't do this anymore. I love you guys, but I can't. I apologize. And they were emotional too. They were just like, well, maybe you can just be in the band and maybe you just don't tour. I just said, I can't. I right now don't even want to touch any instrument. I don't want to think about music anymore. At that time, I just didn't. When you fly with your guitar or bass or whatever, you tune your strings all the way down, to slack them so that the tension, the air pressure, all that cool stuff. I pulled them out of the case when I got home and put them in their rack, and I never tuned it up for like 9 months. I just let it sit, collect dust. I didn't want. Every time I looked at it, it brought an anxiety. It's just like, I miss my daughter, and a matter of fact, this is one time.
Even being at home, you got that feeling of anxiety of missing your daughter.
Yeah, even after I quit the band, I didn't officially announce it till 6 months later. And
because we had talked a few times, I think, since in between when you had the timeline of when you quit and to when you finally told me that. Like, I had no idea that you had even left the band. You had kept it kind of really hush hush.
Because I didn't talk to anybody. I just, like, this is what I'm doing. I had to put my brain back to who I was before I started the band, right? And I do remember, like, as far as anxiety goes, I remember being on, I don't know, it was like in November 2017, the day off. I was in New York State somewhere, Poughkeepsie.
Oh yeah, good old Poughkeepsie.
Yeah,
the Chance Theater.
Yeah, well, it was a day off, and I got a hotel room of my own. I just need to get away, right?
And in your alone time.
In my alone time, and I remember looking at, there was a brick wall inside the hotel in my room, and I remember saying, if I just fucking break my hand, excuse me for that word.
You can drop. You can do whatever you need. Say whatever.
Okay,
you need.
all right. Okay,
feel free.
I remember looking at that wall, that if I break my hand, I don't have to play anymore. And
that's
even
a
then,
really
I was like,
intense thought.
And I was thinking, I've wanted to be a rock star since I was like 5 years old, when I saw the Twisted Sister and Kiss videos growing up, and a kid of the 80s, right? Like, oh man, I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to do it. But when you get to that point where it's like, I'd rather break my hand so I don't have to go on stage that next night, something is wrong. Not with the band, not with the lifestyle, but with me being gone. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember telling people that, and my girlfriend at the time, she was just like, you really need to stop. If you're really thinking that, you can't be thinking. I was like, you're right. I can't be thinking that, and that's what, when you ask, like, separation anxiety, what did it do to me? It made me angry. And what is that, a fight or flight kind of thing?
Yeah, it brought out a lot of these emotions that you weren't able to process. You weren't getting the emotional release that you needed, because you needed to be with your daughter and you were physically away from her. And it got to a point where you were like, what do I do? You're literally willing to, like, gnaw your hand off in order to escape what you felt was a trap.
Yeah. And I didn't even see it. I kind of saw it, but didn't want to acknowledge it. But when when your hobby becomes your career, I mean, it's like, wow, it's so cool. But when it becomes a job, and it does, because that's just how it is. I mean,
well, I think the big thing is like you had two things that were very important to you, something that you've literally wanted to do since you were a child, like your dream, your passion, something that that kind of you felt defined you as you and what you wanted to do. And then you also had something else that defined you as who you were as a person, and something that like was emotionally important to you. And you had these two conflicting things that were literally butting heads, and so you were trying to divide yourself to do both. And the career thing, the way it was set up, it didn't allow you to do the thing that you also needed to do for yourself in order to have that balance, that emotional satisfaction and happiness, and then also just be there for your daughter. And anybody who had that kind of setup where you wanted to do two different things that were equally important to you and not being able to do them successfully, like that's going to tear anyone apart. It's going to break any heart. So the fact that you were able to recognize it before it got to a point where you were became addicted to alcohol or drugs, or before it got to the point where you hurt yourself or hurt anyone else, and you were able to like step back and reassess, and then also be there for your daughter, and then give yourself that ability to within the past like year or so, you started coming back and doing music again more seriously. The fact that you were able to like reassess yourself and then rearrange things that you can still do both things and have both things in your life, that shows a lot of emotional maturity. It shows a lot of awareness, and it shows a lot of strength, because a lot of people have difficulties just acknowledging that there is an issue that they're struggling with in the first place. So the fact that you were able to step back, have that sense of being humble, and just kind of reassess and go, okay, what do I need to do so this way I can be happy, so that I can have both things. That's extremely inspiring, Jason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It takes a while to I guess grow up, and not that I wasn't adult. I mean, I was an adult, but to really to have the tools to handle the emotions, right? And it took me to take some time away, time back. And I always say, sometimes I jump to conclusions. I'm never coming back. Never coming back. Somehow it always vacuums me back in. But I remember, I played my last shows with the band. I don't remember the dates. It was summer 2019. There was 2 shows we did, and I said goodbye to the fans, that were there, and off I go on my own. But I had not picked the instrument up till about a month before those shows. I better do that. And I pretended that I forgot how to play, which I didn't. I was rusty, but it took me time. Okay, I did forget a little bit of stuff, but nothing that didn't just jog my memory after I listened to the song. But after those shows, I really thought, I was just like, this is it. This is over. Not in a bad way though, like just like almost like we should close that chapter. No regrets in it, because I didn't have to. No one forced me into it. I did it, and I have no one to be upset about it. It was just I didn't handle myself in the situation with being a single father. There's nothing wrong with being single parent and doing that, as long as you tie up your loose ends. And that's what I didn't do, is my loose ends were not tied up. There was not a very good a relationship with her mother, which that's kind of both of our faults. It is what it is. But I think now that I have some time off and loose ends are not fraying, they're tied up, it's like I can do things now. And what I've been doing was playing a lot, different styles of music. Um, Still, like I still got it. It never left me. And I just do I was doing a lot of tracks. I'd do them, like someone say, "Hey, can you do some bass lines for me for a demo?" I was like, "Sure, no problem." And it's what's so cool about technology is they can send you the file and then put it in your DAW, and you can track, send it back to them, and I don't have to leave the house.
You can
I mean,
just
it's cool to be in the
work in your
studio. It's cool.
pajamas. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Or when I get home from work, or wake up early in the morning, but before the sun comes up, and get the tracks done, and then send them over, and then cool. The rest of the day, I'm free to go take my kid down to the beach and hang out. Right.
Yeah, you can
So
be the present father.
yeah, yeah. Be the present. Like we have a garden in the back, on the back patio area, we made about 2 years ago. And since her name's Eden, it's the Garden of Eden,
But
Eden's Garden, which she
see what you
doesn't
did
take
there.
care of. Yeah, I take care of it.
Well, of course, you're
But
you're the dad. You're supposed to.
yeah. But but no, I mean, it's much easier, and I've grown a lot, you know. Just but it was definitely hard. It's a learn. It's hard to say if that makes any sense. It's kind of like, I'm glad I went through that, with the up and down emotions, just so I know what not to do anymore. I had
So
to experience it for myself.
do you feel that you, because of your experience with, that 10 years of being on the road all the time, do you feel that with that experience and then your time away, being just away from music and then coming back to where you are now, do you feel that you have a better understanding of how to keep things balanced so that you can do both?
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah, takes when you're gone on the road, like life stops, right?
Mhm.
And you don't. A lot of times, it's hard to think about the domesticated stuff, like at home, and paying attention to what's around, and all your friends and family. They kind of move on, right? And when I came home, when I got back off the road, every time it's like something had changed, something new. Someone moved, someone got married, someone got divorced, someone died, someone's like, "Oh, no one told me, where was I? Oh, you were off in Spain, you were off in Germany." Now it's like it's easier to keep up with everybody, but on the flip side of that, it's like you kind of miss out what's going on in the other world, like on the road with all the other bands and stuff like that. But with social media, you can kind of watch, and every time I watch, like, these bands, and they're doing their Snapchats, or vlogs, it kind of like, I can kind of put myself in their situation, like, oh, I know what they're doing. Or I see if, like, I've been to that place, I've played there before, I know what they're doing.
Like, I've had
Yeah,
those burgers.
I've had those burgers. I know how hot it gets there in Flint, Michigan,
Oof.
at the machine shop. I know
Oh,
how cold it can get in Canada. Canada can get very cold.
it
I
gets
broke my
very.
tooth in Canada one time.
Seriously?
I was carrying a case of beer back tour. This was on the Marilyn Manson tour. Big case of beer. I don't know, some local brand.
Mhm.
And I slipped and I fell right on my butt. And
Oh,
I held the beer, thank God. But I chipped my tooth.
oof, dude, that
Uh,
must have been a terrible rest of the tour.
I Near the end, like half the tooth was gone. I'm like, shit, I need to do something about that. I got home.
You're like,
I had to get
dentist.
it, a bit, filled, and then later on capped. But yeah, I saved the beer.
I mean, that's the most important part.
It was good beer. I don't remember what it was. One of those local brands. Maybe it was in Edmonton, Canada, or something like that.
some some
That was fun.
some local Canadian brew,
Yeah,
homegrown.
yeah. Eh?
Yeah. So, how do you feel that talking about this as a father has come into play with you opening up about it, as opposed to, say, like a single mother opening up about having feelings of separation anxiety? Do you feel like that has affected how you talk to people, or how you've processed it yourself?
I mean, just being a male versus a female?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think I think more dads should be able to open up about how they feel about it. It's not nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of dads who, I mean, they just taking their kid to karate, or taking their sons or daughters to dirt bike riding or something like that. And I guess if you mean like they're not really open, like, yeah, I guess it on the outside they're not, they don't appear to be open, but since I know what they're talking about as a dad, like, I get it. I can read between the lines. Someone said to me recently, it's just like, Jason, you're a girl dad. You're a dad that has a girl, so you feel emotions a little bit more. I see that. Yeah, I am a little more in tune with females' emotions, especially as my daughter's now a teenager. Yeah. Um, it's easier for me to open up the older I get, because uh, I don't have anything to really prove anymore.
Yeah.
Who am I trying to impress? Like, this is how it is. This is what I went through, and if anybody else is going through it, it's I would hope they would able to be to listen to this, and maybe find the tools themselves uh, to conquer that battle inside them. If you start feeling like what you're doing is wrong, and you start thinking about, like, hurting yourself, or drinking, or you find yourself disconnected, that means that there's something wrong there. You need to take care of it.
What's actually, like, adjust what you're doing in life, and not just cause yourself physical harm and fill that void
Right,
with
right,
a
yeah. Like, don't try,
substance.
like, I'm trying to break my hand because I don't want to play anymore. I'm gonna just drink a whole bunch of vodka or something like that, or
Yeah.
I'm just gonna just not associate with anybody, and just I'm gonna sleep all day, because if I sleep, then I don't have to deal with reality, right?
Yeah. So
So,
again, I've mentioned it before, but I think the fact that you were able to, like, make these decisions and, like, open up and, like, take responsibility for your actions, and make the necessary changes, and not just kind of, like, go down a rabbit hole of, like, substance abuse, or just, like, sleeping all day, or, like,
yeah,
physically hurting your hand so you physically can't play. Like, oh, there's an excuse. That
right.
shows a lot
I
of.
never did. I never did that, by the way. I was just
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
it.
I figured as much, since you're still playing the instrument from time to time. Yeah, I think it's very it shows a lot of strength, and I think that shows you know good a good character quality that other people can look up to. Like, your daughter including. So you're showing her, like, hey, I realized something was wrong. I took responsibility, and I made the change that I needed to do. And that,
Yeah,
being that she was so young and still is very young, like, I think she will see that and go, oh, my dad uh is teaching me to take responsibility for my actions. And life is going to have uh opportunities and decisions for me to make that aren't going to be easy, but it doesn't mean that I
right,
shouldn't take responsibility and make a decision. And you
right.
also have the ability to change your what you want to do. So it's also something that needs to be taken into consideration, because you went on tour, you fulfilled a lifelong dream.
Yeah,
You stepped back for a little bit to focus on something else, but you realized, okay, I don't need to give it up completely. So, like, you're learning how to balance everything, and that is also a really good
right. Yeah,
example for your daughter. And then for anyone who's tuning in right now, whether they're watching this or listening to this, I think uh, I think what you've gone through is an amazing example of people being of someone being responsible dealing with such severe emotions. So I thank you, Jason, for sharing that.
Anytime.
And thank you in general just for being here on the show. Thank you for being a friend for all these years. Thank you for being such a positive and encouraging person.
Well, thank you for the invite.
Yeah,
I hope someone's listening. I hope it enlightens somebody.
Well, if it helps at least one person, then I think that it does its job.
That's right.
So I truly believe that the more that we as a society feel comfortable opening up about our struggles, the more it will help others to realize that they are not alone. Everyone has the inner strength to face whatever life puts along their path. So thank you again, Jason, for taking the time to chat. And thank you to everyone that has tuned into this episode. If anyone watching finds that they are struggling with their mental health, please do not be afraid to reach out to your friends, family, or a mental health professional. I'll place a link in the description of this video that will have some information and connection to further resources. And until next time, remember, you always have the strength to conquer your battlefield.